Dr. Patrick needs no introduction. He's been on here before. Last year you came on, and actually our discussion last year was on AI and animal reproduction. So it's so funny because we're going kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum for today's discussion, because we ended up having to do a postmortem. So thank you, Dr. Patrick, for coming. For those of you that are new with us, Dr. Patrick is one of the vets with Nutrimix, and he's very experienced, very versed, and he is ready for anything called a postmortem at the drop of a hat. You just say postmortem, and he's like there, no questions asked. So Dr. Patrick came to see us, I guess it was about almost 2 weeks ago now. Gosh, time flies. Week and a half?
Yeah, maybe.
Week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And actually, he was coming by, actually not even for the postmortem. He was coming by to drop off some stuff. And it just so happened that one of our baby goats died. And when we were putting the flyer together, we said, what happened to my kid? And we're like, no, we need to change that to baby goat, just in case somebody thinks we're killing children around here. We don't want that. So we said baby goat. Right? So just for you guys, just to get a little bit of background on what's going on with this kid and her mother. So the mother actually has mastitis, which we're going to talk about that later in the presentation. But what we've found with this mother is kind of like it was hit or miss. Some days everything is, well, when she has kids, they're nice kids, the ones that do well, and then the others have had challenges on and off. So, you kind of work with them to decide, do you want to keep the mother or not? So I think we might be on the last leg with this mother, because she did give us 2 beautiful kids, girl kids, in this go around, but then the one died. And so what happened was she had mastitis. So one of the teat was working, however you say that, okay? And so the one kid was sucking the one teat, and then the other kid, she just kept pushing that one away. So a couple of days we kind of noticed what was going on. We're like, okay, let's separate her. But you guys know, if you try to separate a kid after they start sucking, at first they kind of fight you and they don't want the bottle. But we gave her that first bottle. She ate well. We're like, okay, great. We're good. We can do this. And then the next day, it's just like every day after then, she just progressively got worse. And so we were, drenching her with milk, because we're like, maybe I was thinking she had a broken heart, because she was crying. I'm like, okay, we just broke her heart because we just split her up from her family. And now she feels like an orphan and she won't eat because she just has a broken heart. So we were trying everything with her, and we tried and we tried and we tried, and then she died. And the day she died was actually the day that Dr. Patrick happened to come and visit us. So, Dr. Patrick, take it from there and tell us what your observations were with that postmortem.
Okay, so I must say that based on where I'm coming from, and I've been in Europe for quite some time, and the general consensus is, or the rule of thumb is, everything that is dead must have a postmortem done, because you really need to know what's going on. And it's important to know what's going on because it could affect other animals on your farm. It could affect your neighbors. It could be something that is reportable that you need to report to authorities, government, vets, and all these things can affect quite a number of things. It could have a chain reaction. It could affect international trade. If we find certain things, it could affect if we can actually export anything out of Jamaica to other countries. So it can have very vast implications. And so, just like human beings, every person who dies, a postmortem has to be done to figure out why that person dies. It's the very same thing with animals. You really need to do a postmortem to know what happened, and and to figure out if it was something very innocuous or something that could cause great damage to your farm. So that animal died. It was quite fresh, meaning that there was there were no changes in the body, so we could really see basically what was going on before the animal died. Mm-hmm. It was a small kid, and initially I look at the outside, it looked normal. The animal was a little bit thin, wasn't maybe getting enough milk, because, as I said, one teat was working, the other one was not working very well. And as I go on in this chat, we will talk about some of the things that causes mastitis, and some of the organisms that can cause mastitis can also cause the condition that we're seeing in your animals. So we will also talk about that. So doing a postmortem, it's just like doing your regular exam when you look at an animal clinical exam. You basically look at everything. You just don't want to open the animal, see one little thing that is of interest, and then you focus on that very much. So you look at everything. Even if you see what happens, you still continue and look, because whatever you're seeing could be secondary, and you really need to find the primary cause of death of this animal. So we look at the abdomen, because generally when I open animals, I open the abdomen first. Reason being, an animal could die from what we call a pneumothorax, meaning that the chest would have been damaged, air would have gotten inside there, and the animal could have suffocated and died. The only way you can find out that is if you open the abdomen, and then you could make a little poke in the diaphragm, and if the diaphragm comes back to you, then it means that the animal was fine. If it does not move or goes the other way, it means that there would have been hair inside there. It wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been, it would have been compromised in a case. So generally, that's what I do to find out whether animals have that problem or not. Because the animal could get stuck by a piece of nail or a piece of wire or something, and the animal could have suffocated easily. You wouldn't have known what would have happened right there. And so I looked at everything. Everything seemed normal until we got to the chest. There was quite a lot of fluid inside there, and a little bit of fluid is okay for the organs to move about. But there was quite a lot of fluid inside there. The fluid looked really awful. It was red. It has yellow tinge. Something looks like pus. And when you looked at the heart for a small kid, the heart was grossly enlarged. And once you see a very big heart, right away you know that it's a red flag. Something must be going on. But then you really don't stop there. You have to look and see exactly what's happening. I removed the pericardium. That's the thin little membrane around the heart. And right away there was lots of fluid running out of that, and that fluid did not seem clear. Now, in a normal animal, when you open the pericardium, you will find a little bit of fluid. It looks like water, but it's a little bit thicker than water, because the heart is moving. It's like grease, what you have in your engine, because the heart is moving, it's beating very fast, and it needs all that lubrication. But what we found in that animal, it was very thick. We find pus inside there. It was fibrin. And when you see fibrin inside there, it means that the vessels around the heart became leaky. It was leaking fluid from the vessels, and that's also a very huge red flag. And we saw lots of nasty stuff, things that the regular man would not want to see. And when you see a chest cavity looking like that, it means that that animal was really going through a rough time. And there are quite a number of things that could have caused that, things that we'll talk about, and I'll list a few of them. And maybe we should just start right now. Number one organism that came to mind, I had a look at some research and see how very common this in goats. It's pretty common, and it's an organism that we call mycoplasma. Now, mycoplasma is a little bit different from bacteria. Whereas bacteria will have this, what we call a peptidoglycan or a cell wall around it. The mycoplasma.
Dr. Patrick,
let's narrow it down. Let's narrow it down. So the bacteria will have something sort of a cell wall around it.
Okay.
The mycoplasma will not have that. So it is much more efficient in entering cells and entering all sorts of body tissues and organs, including the brain, and cause disease. Now, there are five basic problems that you'll find happening in goats in particular with this particular disease. The first one, it causes respiratory problem, and that's what we saw in your kid.
Okay.
She had a great respiratory insult. The heart was damaged. The lungs tend to look like, when you see the lungs starting to look like liver, then you know that you're having quite a bit of issues. And we see that in pigs quite a lot too.
Okay, can I ask a question though?
Yes.
So the respiratory problem,
yes,
how would we have seen that?
Well, the first thing that you'd see, and with animals, it's a bit more difficult than with human beings or even with your pets. With goats and cows and all those animals, they're farm animals. And when they're sick, what they do is the body tries as best as possible to actually, fix itself. The animal will try as much as possible, if they can, to actually move around, to seem okay. When they can't anymore, they start to lose body condition. They start to hide away a little bit. They start to, they might suckle less. They might go to the feed pan less, drink less water, and then they start to get very thin overall. If you don't actually go and do a physical exam, check that animal, listen to the chest wall, you will not know what's going on. Or unless you go and you take a blood sample and run it and look at the blood profile and see what's going on inside there, you will not know what's going on. And that's why it's more efficient when you talk about cats and dogs, because somebody will see their dog behaving a little bit weird and then they'll take it to the vet and you find that out. You do a complete physical exam, you take blood, you do x-rays, and you find that out. It's much different with a goat because it's on a farm situation. Most of what we can do is actually look at the animal, check the temperature, see that there's a temperature. You may listen to the chest wall. A trained person will hear very different heart sounds. You know that there's a problem. In your kid, if that was done right away within a second, the vet would have known that there's a problem. This animal is having a serious problem and we need to actually treat. Or if it gets to a certain stage where you can't treat anymore, you just have to cull the animal. Because with your kid, if we had found that kid maybe 2 days prior, we wouldn't be able to save it anyway. So just so you know. Yeah.
So we just really need to be aware and observe your animals. If they start lagging behind, like you said, not eating as much, staying away from everybody, that's some of the first indicators that us on the small level as a farmer. So there's things we need to look for. Okay.
So and the one thing that I need to say right here before I move on is that farmers need to stop treating their animals as their pets. I understand that you all love your animals, and the first thing you want to do in the morning is just run out there and hug them and play with them and run around them. That is the wrong approach. The correct approach, in your case, for example, like where you live, when you exit that building, the first thing you do is you stand outside the metal gate and you look inside and you observe all your animals. Say, for example, you have 30 animals. You observe all 30 animals, what they're doing. If you know them very well and very intimately, you know that this one likes to run around, this one likes to run up to the fence. And if you notice that that one in particular is lagging behind, staying alone somewhere, that is what you look at. So that's what you do the first thing every morning. You observe your animals, look at what they're doing, and that's how you pick up that something is wrong. And then you can actually check out that animal, because that's one of the easiest ways of finding something. It's best to call the vet in and there's no problem than to not pick it up and then you end up losing the animal.
Very true.
So
very true. Observation is key.